Welcome to Money Talks. I'm Nancy Stark, and with me here today is Deanna Booker. Dee is a truly amazing person. She's from Consumer Credit Counseling Service of Maryland and Delaware, where she's served many, many different posts. She's currently their Communication and Community Outreach Manager. She's also a very accomplished financial educator and expert, and we're lucky to have her here today. Deanna, before we start, can you please tell us what CCCS does?
Well, I don't know if I can because I'm still blushing from that intro. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You deserve it.
Thank you. We are a nonprofit organization just serving folks here on the Eastern Shore. We have offices in Salisbury and Dover, just providing all sorts of financial counseling and education, any kind of help that we can give.
Well, that's wonderful. And CCCS has been here for 45 years,
Yeah,
right?
a long time.
That's a long time.
Long time.
Today, we're going to kind of jump off from a point where we were in September. In September, we did an entire program on identity theft. And we had enough response from that to actually go forward and talk further about financial scams, because there are really a lot of them. With that said, Dee, you might kick us off and tell us approximately how many consumer reports are made on fraud each year?
Well, that's kind of hard to say. Honestly, there's really no.
If I ask you something,
right.
you can't tell them.
There's really no fixed answer on that because we just don't know. It's really hard to pinpoint. But I can tell you that the FTC just did a study not too long ago, and that study, the results of that study indicated that around 13% of the population of our country, so that's about 30 million people, have been a victim of some sort of fraud over the last 12 months. So
that's amazing.
It's huge. It's huge.
Yeah. Well, and I'll bet it's underreported even. So there might be even more.
Exactly. And that number's probably low. You're absolutely right, because there are a lot of folks who, because of embarrassment and things like that, don't report, that it happens to them. So it's a big number. It's a big number.
How when you get scammed, how does it affect you?
Well, I think one of the biggest ways it affects people is the fact that it costs them money. On average, most folks spend about $537, or it costs about $537.
That's an average.
Exactly, on average. So some folks it's a lot more, maybe some less. So I think that's the biggest way, monetarily, that it's impacting people. But also I think it erodes a bit of the trust that people have in either the people in their community, if it's someone that was close to them that made them a victim, or entities, whatever it is in their community. So they lose some of that trust factor, I think, that they had. And also it makes people angry. It makes people anxious, so I think it really can have a huge impact.
I'm going to go back to that financial part of it again, because for people who lose their retirement, or who lose because they made a bad investment, or they got fleeced from the point of view of a loan, it can be thousands and thousands of dollars. Oh,
absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. That average is just that. It's an average. There are some people who lose so much more. You're talking about whole life savings sometimes that people are fleeced. That's a great word. They're fleeced out of.
Wow. Well, with that said, how do they fool us? How do these scam artists get at us and actually get us to go along?
Well, I think it's about manipulation. It's about control. So I think what a scammer's doing is they're doing anything that they can to gain our trust, first of all, but also kind of divert us at the same time. So ply us maybe with some lies or some half-truths to keep us away from what's really going on. And they're hooking us. They're hooking us in. And once they get us hooked in, I think the fraud can happen so quickly, and we can become a victim so quickly that it's already happened and it's already done before we know it, or before we understand, sometimes that we've been hooked. So I think scammers are looking for folks. They're targeting people. They really are. They're playing on folks' desires, or folks' sympathies even, maybe with an idea of, we really want to help somebody. They're tempting people with money, with all sorts of things.
With these ploys.
Yeah. So I think there's all kinds of ways that these scammers, these con artists are hooking us.
I've even heard that they hook us when they find out we want to do good.
Yeah.
That we want to help somebody out.
Absolutely.
That can be the worst thing.
Absolutely.
Can anybody be scammed?
Anybody can be scammed. So they're targets, and they're sorts of people that these scammers are going after. But I think ultimately you're absolutely right. Any one of us, anybody can become a victim of a scam.
Well, you said that they actually target us based on our personal needs and our personalities. What types of people are most commonly scammed?
I think that a lot of the times folks who are isolated, folks maybe who live alone, maybe, they don't have very much of a support system around, so they're easy sometimes. I think the elderly, a lot of the times, are easy targets for scammers, folks who are looking to get rich quick.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Scammer, right? A scammer can spot that. A scammer can tell if
Sniff it
they
out.
hook you in with that kind of temptation or that kind of ploy. So I think folks like that are easier, honestly, for scammers to target.
Well, it's interesting that you say that. I read a report not very long ago where they were looking at if seniors really are, targets, because we often hear that, and I think they do, and we're going to come back to that in a minute. But one of the things that I thought was interesting is people who are very educated, financially educated, can also be scammed because...
You're absolutely right, and it's because I think that we think we know so much.
Yes,
if we're leaning on our own understanding, exactly, we're overconfident. We think, oh my goodness, I know all about that. I don't need any input. I don't need any education around, whatever this person might be talking to me about. I know it and I can do it. So yeah, you're right. When we think we know too much, I think we can be a victim. We
can be an easy target then too. That's really interesting. Well, let's talk a little bit about the elderly, because they are one of the targeted areas, or groups, particularly where they may be living alone, or they may not have as much contact with the outside world as some people do.
Exactly.
If you are an older person in that situation, or someone who is a family member or friend, how can you tell there might be a scam on the horizon?
Yeah, I think you just really have to be watching. I think if you're somebody who's responsible or who's involved in helping to care for an older person, especially when it comes to their finances, you just want to watch. If there's somebody that's, they got a new best friend, there's somebody hanging around, maybe somebody new, somebody you're not too sure of, that might be a tell. That might be a way to know that something might be going on. If the person's banking habits have changed, or their banking practices.
If you're in charge of their finances.
If you're in charge of looking at their statements or whatever it is, and you see that they're making more withdrawals, or there's a change, in those kinds of things, you really want to watch out. Another thing is if their property, that senior citizen, if their property or their valuables are missing, or they think they're misplaced, that might tell you that, somebody's stealing from them, or, so you really just have to be aware of those kinds of things, what might be happening.
That's true, or maybe if their beneficiaries change, right?
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Or who's assigned to their account.
That's right. If you have a chance to look at their documents, or if you're responsible for looking at their documents and helping them with that kind of thing, if you see those sorts of changes, you really want to be, you want to ask them about it. That's a warning sign. It absolutely is.
Well, we talked a little bit about the types of people that are targeted and how they go about doing it. Let's talk a little bit about how scam artists actually approach their victims. Now, I know there are lots and lots and lots of ways when I was researching this, and one of them is obviously on the telephone. From a telemarketing point of view, what should we be watching for?
Yeah, you really do just have to be really aware when it comes to telemarketers, because they're going to call and they're going to, pose as legitimate businesses or legitimate charities or legitimate organizations, maybe places that we are familiar with, or we do know, or we do trust. So you really just have to be kind of on guard when someone's calling you. You absolutely never want to give out any of your personal information. So social security number, certainly not. Bank account numbers, credit card numbers, that kind of thing. You want to ask questions, really find out that this person really is who they say they are.
Right.
Who are you? What's a number that I can independently call you back and verify, that you really are calling from where you say you're calling from? Ask some questions. You really have to take a lot of care when it comes to telemarketers, because it's very simple, very easy for them to pose. They even use names sometimes. They'll make it sound like they're calling from a place that we're familiar with. So they're going to say, "Hi, this is John from the National Red Cross," or something. They're going to change it up a little bit just to make us think that we're talking to somebody that, we would trust.
An organization that we know and trust.
Exactly. So you want to make sure, you really have to be careful when it comes to telemarketing. And here's another thing about telemarketing, just to avoid it altogether. You can go to the internet and go to www.donotcall.gov to be placed on the do not call list.
That's an excellent
Just to
idea.
cut it out, cut it off at the knees, just so telemarketers aren't calling you at all.
That's also a savings of time as well as money.
Exactly.
Well, we talked a little bit about the telephone. Obviously, the internet and email are another big source of scams.
Absolutely.
How does that work?
Well, it's the same thing, kind of, because on the internet, using email, these con artists, these scammers, they're posing. They're sending us these emails pretending to be, legitimate organizations or legitimate charities. So again, it's just about using caution and exercising that caution. Again, when you're transacting business, make sure it's with companies and on sites that you know and trust. It's secure. The site has that HTTPS, that little padlock symbol, right? So you want to look out for that. You want to make sure that it's, somebody that you can verify. You can find out exactly who they are, where they're sending you an email from. Another thing, especially about emails, businesses sometimes will contact you by email, but a legitimate business is not going to ask for your social security number, your account number. A lot of times these scammers are going to do something that we call phishing with a PH.
Just like with a hook.
Right, exactly. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to bait us and hook us, so they'll send you an email that looks like it's from your bank.
So if my bank contacts me and says, we're updating your account, just give us this information. You really shouldn't jump at that.
You shouldn't, because legitimate banks, they're not going to do that information. They're not going to ask for that information from you through an email. They don't do email account updates. So you just want to be aware. You want to avoid that kind of thing. Don't click on these links, sometimes that scammers will try to send to you for, this prize or just this charity or this sweepstakes. You just want to avoid it.
So if you're going to verify them, you're not going to press the link. You're going to actually go to that company's website.
Absolutely. You're going to independently verify, where this information is coming from.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, another area where I see a lot of what could potentially be scams is on the air, like on TV or on cable or even in magazines or newspapers, ads. False advertising is an area that's been with us for a really long time, but it's still there.
Right.
How does that work?
It's that same kind of thing, that same kind of bait and switch. You'll see these ads and these infomercials and things like that on late night TV. It's in buy it now. Yeah, exactly. It's buy it now, and we're having a fire sale, and there's only 3 left, and hurry up and get in on the ground floor of this good deal.
We'll save you three times as much as what it's worth.
Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of times they'll do that, and they'll hook us in, and then you'll end up either getting a lesser product or they'll hook you into paying more. So, nothing's free. Nothing's free. So you just want to be aware of a company that seems to be offering you something for nothing.
Or if they offer you something, then suddenly when you buy it, it's like, well, we're out of stock. Yeah. Send me this.
Again,
instead.
It's a lesser product, right? Or they want you to pay more or do something more.
There's a hidden cost.
There's a hidden cost, exactly. So again, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And you just want to stay away.
That's going to be true in general, it seems like, for scams.
Absolutely.
Well, with that said, there's one other area I know where I couldn't believe this, but it does happen. Knock, knock, knock. You open the door, and there they are. Yes. What do we have to watch for when it comes to door-to-door scams?
Believe it or not, scammers are still knocking on doors. They really are. So again, it's just about having that awareness. Somebody knocks on your door. Absolutely don't let them into your home. Don't buy anything until you verify. You want to see some identification. You know what I mean? So you can verify that this person is who they say they are. So you just really want to be careful. A lot of times it happens with a construction kind of thing. There's this construction scam.
This happened to me not that long ago. A gentleman came walking up my driveway and he said, well, we're just in the neighborhood and we were doing this job for a neighbor down the street.
I bet they told you he had something left over.
He did. He had some asphalt left over that he gives to us at a really remarkably good price. And he noticed there was a little crack in our driveway. Should I have bought it from him?
Absolutely not. And I'm so glad that you didn't. But that is so common. That's exactly what they do. They come up, hey, we're in the neighborhood. We just got done some work for your neighbor down the street. I can do it for you for a real good deal, but got to do it right now. It's only
That's one of the keys.
Exactly. That's the key. Because that person could take your money and say, okay, I'm just going to get the truck. And you'd never see him again.
Yeah, it's interesting. The truck was nowhere to be seen.
Right. Or if they do the job, it's substandard. You know what I mean? Or they don't finish. You never hear from them again. So that kind of thing, you didn't want to take that deal. You want to have a contract. You want to read the details in a contract. If you're going to work with somebody or have them do some work on your home, you want it to be contracted. You want to know that they're licensed, and all of these kinds of things. So you really want to be very, very careful of somebody knocking on your door out of the blue, because usually it's not gonna end up good.
Two other things I think on a contract that are important is it's important to make sure they have their vital statistics on the contract.
Oh, sure.
Obviously,
absolutely.
Their name,
Who
their
they
address,
are.
the phone
Right.
number, all of that contract.
All of that.
And also that on that contract somewhere it says you can get out of it if you're not satisfied.
Exactly right. All of those things are important, and you want to make sure that all of that's in a contract. Right. It's in that contract. It's there to protect you, that you've read it all and that you understand it fully. Absolutely.
So you're asking a lot of questions before you sign anything.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And you might want to think it over for a while.
Right. You don't want
to
to make a hasty decision. You don't want to do that right now. That isn't something, if you're going to make that kind of purchase or have that kind of work done, it's something you want to think about. So don't be pressured. Don't let anyone pressure you with some, high sales tactics into doing something like that.
So we've talked about how scam artists attract us and some of the ways that they approach us. Why don't we shift gears a little bit and let's talk some about the actual financial scams that are out there.
Okay.
According to the FTC, what are some of the most common ones besides identity theft?
I think the 3 or 4 top ones are banking and lending, debt collection and settlement and that kind of thing, and sweepstakes, lotteries. That's a big one.
Right.
That's a big one.
Okay, that's good. Those are all good ones for us to talk about. Let's start with banking and lending.
Okay.
You talked about the fact that one of the things that the scammers often look for is that people are financially struggling, because those people are desperate a lot of the time.
Exactly.
Any of us who have had financial problems know that.
Right.
It's not a fun thing to be in.
Right. That's exactly
and
right.
quite often, if you're trying to get a loan and you're already in debt, that's one of the hardest areas. Trying to get a loan when you're already in debt is almost impossible, especially now.
That's right.
That's where predatory lending comes in. How does predatory lending work?
Well, predatory lending is just that, or predatory lenders prey on folks who are having financial trouble. So people are often victimized by predatory lenders, easier and easily, because they're in such terrible financial straits. And you really see it a lot when it comes to unscrupulous loan or mortgage providers.
Right.
What these scammers and what these con artists are doing, they're using these high pressure sales tactics. They've got all these confusing contracts and all this kind of thing to just to scam a borrower and to make fees for themselves. One of the main tactics that they use is something called flipping.
What exactly is that?
Okay, this is where I was going to tell you. This is where a lender refinances a loan to set a profit and to score a profit for themselves, more so than to provide a true benefit to the borrower.
In other words, they're fleecing the customer so they can line their pockets.
Exactly. So they're getting a kickback, basically. So there's going to be a fee. There are going to be high penalties and things that a borrower is going to end up paying, and it really is just going to set them on a course for more trouble. It really is. So the way that these predatory lenders handle folks and treat people, it's just horrible, and folks end up so much worse off than they were when they started.
One of the areas that I think is a common area from the point of view of flipping is having a penalty fee if you're going to pay off your loan early.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
That's a very common one.
Exactly, because it might be something that a borrower is looking to do, but there are huge fees and huge penalties for early pay down because that is, that's taking money away from that unscrupulous lender. They were trying to make a fee, on that, make their fee on that. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and all the more reason to read the contract, ask a lot of questions before you sign anything.
Absolutely. Before you get into any sort of loan arrangement, any sort of contractual agreement, you must read all of the fine print. You have to know, you have to ask questions. You've got to understand exactly what the terms are, what the fees really are, what kind of penalties, what's up front. You've got to know before you sign on the dotted line with anything.
Well, that makes full sense. I know one of the areas from a predatory lending point of view that's common at this point is for people who are worried about saving their homes. We have what's called foreclosure prevention assistance, and we've talked about that before in a good way as far as getting help when you need it.
Yeah.
But how do these people prey on those customers?
Exactly, you're right, and we should talk about it in the bad way too, because it's
Yeah.
happening. These foreclosure prevention scams are so successful because people are so desperate. At a point when they connect with a person who's running a scam like this, folks are faced with losing their homes. They're about to be foreclosed on. They're about to lose their property, so they're so desperate. And what these scammers do is make all of these promises. They promise the moon, you're going to keep your house. I can save your home. You know, just pay me $3,000 up front or whatever it is, you know, whatever the amount is, and I'm going to see to it that you keep your home. And people believe it because they want to believe it. Because
what ultimately happens to them, though?
What ultimately happens is a lot of the time they end up losing their home to the scammer. All along, the scammer was out.
The scammer might keep their home.
Right, the scammer was out to take their home from them and fleece them and get them to pay all these upfront fees. So it's doubly painful. What I would say to folks is, if you're in danger of losing your home, if you're facing foreclosure, the best thing for you to do is contact a reputable, accredited, licensed, nonprofit, HUD-approved housing counseling agency like Consumer Credit Counseling of Maryland and Delaware and get the right kind of help.
How do they do that?
Folks can call us. They can call our housing line. The number is 1-866-731-8486 and make an appointment with one of our housing counselors. And we have the appointment. You can go into one of our offices. You can talk to the counselor over the phone just to get it done, just to get that help that you need.
That's really important advice. Sort of hand in hand with that, we have debt collection, which also applies to people who are having problems with their finances.
Yes.
With debt settlement, we see ads on TV quite often saying that we can help you pay off your debts immediately. We can save you pennies on the dollar is all you're going to have to pay.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
Everything. What's wrong with it is that these companies that you see advertising these ads, they are from for-profit companies.
And they're not going to keep those promises.
No, they make all of these way out promises that they cannot keep, and they're going to charge you these huge excessive fees up front, again, for these promises that they can't keep. You're much better off contacting a reputable credit counseling agency that's going to help you, that's going to take you through a clear process to get your debts repaid. A lot of these agencies that, you know, they put these ads on TV and on the radio, it's just not true. They can't do anything for you that you couldn't do for yourself, honestly.
And you could end up in worse financial shape than you were before.
Absolutely.
As a result of it.
Absolutely.
Tell me a little bit, you said that they need to see a nonprofit, a reputable nonprofit credit counselor, and I know CCCS does that.
Right.
How does your credit counseling program work?
What's going to happen when you come to us for credit counseling? You are going to be put with a counselor who is going to, first of all, give you free, confidential counseling, but also that complete financial assessment. Really, the counselor is going to talk with you and find out about where you are right now. Where do you stand financially? Looking at your budget, looking at your income, looking at your expenses, where do you stand? Doing that assessment to find out what's going to be the best repayment option for you.
Does CCCS offer any kind of a repayment option?
Absolutely. We have something called a debt management plan. And that's a low-cost payment plan where a client would make one payment to us each month. We would take that payment, break it down, and send it to each of their unsecured creditors on their behalf. Creditors make concessions for a person when you come into that program. They lower interest rates and that kind of thing. And so we can put somebody on that if it's the right repayment option. It's about coming to the determination of what's best for each individual client and going through that assessment and understanding where somebody is financially at that moment is the best way to do that.
It isn't like one size fits all.
No, absolutely not.
And the other thing I think that's a really important point to make is that a nonprofit organization like CCCS is not going to charge an upfront fee.
Absolutely
Like
not.
at the beginning of the process. Like you said, there's just that small maintenance fee as they go through.
We do charge that small maintenance fee, but nothing akin to these high fees, these upfront fees that some of these places are charging, again, for promises that they can't keep. The maintenance fee that we're going to charge is just for administrative costs, and it's very, very small.
That's good to know. Well, another area that has to do with debt collection is when your credit is shot, your credit rating and your credit score are also usually shot. And I hear a lot of ads out there saying we can make it all good again. We can fix your credit.
Yes.
Can you tell us what these organizations, how do they work?
Well, what you're talking about, these organizations, they're called credit repair clinics. That's how they usually refer to themselves. And what they'll tell us, or what they'll tell a person is that, oh, we can clear everything up. We can make it all go away. We can make it like it was never there. Bring your credit report, back up to stuff. And honestly, it isn't true. They really can't remove that information. Nobody can remove accurate negative information from your credit report. So if something's on your credit report that's bad, but it's true, nobody can take it off. And don't let anybody tell you they can. They can't. They can't do anything for you that you couldn't do for yourself. What I would suggest that folks do is go to our website. We have a whole e-learning course that's going to teach people about how they can request and review and their credit reports and dispute anything that's there.
Interesting.
Right, that shouldn't be there. And it's something that you can do on your own, because that's all those credit repair places are going to do. And they're going to charge us for it. They're going to charge these huge upfront fees, and it's something that we can do for ourselves for free. So if you go to the site, go to our education menu and look for understanding credit reports and scores, and you really can get some good information about it.
What is your website?
It's www.cccs-inc.org.
Excellent. Are there other resources out there for people who want to learn about credit reports?
I was actually just about to say the FTC also has a really, really good crop of information on their site. It's www.ftc.gov. So folks can go there and learn some more about how you can dispute that information on your own, and it doesn't have to cost you anything.
Excellent. So we've talked about banking and lending, and we've talked about debt collection. Another financial area that I've heard people have problems with is investment. And that's particularly true because a number of us have lost retirement funds in the last few years. One of the terms we're real familiar with as far as scamming when it comes to investment are Ponzi schemes. What exactly are there, and what are some of the other schemes we have to be aware of?
Yeah, a Ponzi scheme, and we all are. We're so familiar with what's just happened recently in the news. A Ponzi scheme is where scammers are paying investors with the money that they've gotten from other investors, and not from the profit, from doing business, not from the company's profit.
So when the money runs out, your luck runs out too.
Exactly. Now what's happening though is that the scammer is keeping all the money that's coming in, so that's how folks really end up, just kind of holding the bag just empty. So we really, really do have to exercise caution when it comes to investment. So we want to be aware, especially of, folks who are telling us, oh, you can invest with me or with this company, and it's risk-free. No such thing when it comes to investment. No such thing as risk-free guarantees. You also want to avoid, and you want to be aware of people who are doing investment business or working in the investment business that don't have valid security licenses.
That's an important one.
Right, that are selling, unregistered investment products, that kind of thing. When it comes to investment, we really, really have to be asking questions and getting the information, because just like you said, we're talking about folks who are tying up their entire life savings, into these sorts of things. So you really have to be on point when it comes to investments.
You could get to that age and not have anything.
Not have anything. Folks have ended up not having 1 cent left. So you really have to know.
That's a really scary proposition.
Yeah.
Well, let's turn the globe a little bit here and talk about getting rich. All of us would like to win the lottery, but I hear that there are lots of scams out there that have to do with lotteries and sweepstakes. Tell me about those.
Yeah, there really are. And again, we just have to be cautious. If somebody's saying, hey, you can win this prize or get this amount of money or whatever it is, just send us this entry fee, or just pay this amount to get this prize. If somebody's asking you to pay for a prize, number one, that's illegal. They cannot ask you to pay to be able to participate in a sweepstakes or a lottery.
Sense.
And also we have to think about, if there's a prize involved and we have to pay for it, even if it's shipping or something, you're not winning. You're buying.
You're buying it.
Right, you're buying it. So you really have to be careful. And it can happen too. You can end up on the phone. That happens a lot with these sweepstakes and these prizes. Folks they're calling you. And it might look like they're calling you from a local number, but they can use technology and they could be calling you from anywhere in the world. So you really just have to know and really just take that kind of thing with a grain of salt. Again, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Well, Deanna, We've covered a lot of ground this time.
Yeah.
All of it, to me, sounds like it
stuff.
can be summed up in one phrase. Be